When Barron Trump asked his father a simple question, no one could have predicted the impact it would have. Donald Trump, known for his tough exterior and unshakable confidence, had spent decades building his empire. But this question from his son, Barron, would not only change his life, it would redefine everything he thought he knew about leadership and success. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon in the Trump Tower penthouse, a place where only a few ever saw the true heart of the Trump family. Donald was sitting by the window, gazing out over the skyline of New York City. Barron, who had just come back from school, casually walked into the room. He had always been quiet, observant, much like his father, but there was something different in his eyes that day. "Dad," Barron asked, his voice gentle but firm, "why do you think you've achieved so much? What makes you different from everyone else?" Donald, initially taken aback, paused. He wasn't used to being questioned about his success in such a direct way, especially not by his son. Barron wasn't asking just out of curiosity. There was something deeper, something more thoughtful behind his words. Donald thought for a moment before responding. "Well, Barron, I've always been driven by one thing: winning. People either admire that or they don't. I've built an empire because I don't settle for anything less than the best." Barron nodded, but his face showed a deeper contemplation. "But Dad," he continued, "is winning really all that matters? What about the people you leave behind, the people who may never get the chance to win the way you did?" Donald was silent. Barron's words lingered in the room, cutting through the air. No one had ever made him think this way before, not even the countless advisors and business partners who had always surrounded him. Barron wasn't just questioning his father's approach to business. He was questioning the very definition of success. For the first time in years, Donald felt a sense of vulnerability. His empire had been built on power, influence, and the idea of dominance. But Barron's simple question, asked with the innocence and clarity of a young mind, forced him to reconsider everything. That night, Donald stayed up late, reflecting on Barron's words. He thought about the people who had worked for him, the countless employees, the ones who struggled to make ends meet, the ones who would never experience the luxury that he did. And as the night grew darker, something inside him began to shift. Weeks passed, and Barron continued to observe his father, now noticing the subtle changes in him. Donald was still the same man in many ways, the businessman, the leader. But Barron could see a new depth in him, something that wasn't there before. He started to spend more time with his employees, asking them about their lives, their challenges. He even began to donate more to causes he had previously ignored. One afternoon, Barron and Donald were at Mar-a-Lago, sitting by the pool when Barron spoke again. "Dad, have you ever thought about how much more you could do? How many lives you could change with your influence?" Donald, now more open to Barron's perspective, replied thoughtfully, "I've always believed in the power of influence, Barron, but I've used it to build my empire. I'm not sure how to use it for anything else." Barron smiled. "What if you started by listening? What if you could change the lives of the people who don't have the voice you do? I think that's what really matters." This time, Donald didn't have an immediate answer, but he realized Barron was right. Over the next few months, Donald took action. He started meeting with community leaders, speaking to underprivileged groups, and learning about the struggles that many Americans faced. He found himself more connected with people on a personal level, not just as a businessman or former president, but as someone who truly cared about the future of his country and the people who lived in it. One day, as Donald was preparing for a speech at a charity event, he turned to Barron and said, "You know, I've been thinking a lot about what you said. I've built a legacy, but it's not just about me anymore. It's about the people we can lift up, the ones who don't have the same opportunities we did. I want to make a real difference in their lives." Barron's face lit up. "I knew you would get there, Dad. It's never too late to change." That evening, Donald gave a speech like no other. He spoke about his success, but more importantly, he spoke about the importance of giving back, of lifting up those who had been left behind. He talked about the power of influence, not just in business, but in making a real difference in people's lives. The response was overwhelming. For the first time, Donald Trump was not just praised for his business acumen or political career. He was praised for his heart, for his commitment to change, and for the way he had allowed his son's question to transform him. As the years went on, Barron and Donald continued to work together, creating initiatives to help underprivileged children, supporting education, and working to bridge the gap between the wealthy and those in need. The Trump name, once synonymous with power and wealth, began to represent something more meaningful: compassion, leadership, and the willingness to change. Barron's simple question had done more than change his father's life. It had changed the course of their legacy, and it had changed the way the world saw them. They were no longer just business tycoons or political figures. They were two men who understood the true meaning of leadership. And it all began with one question. As Donald continued on his new path, Barron became more involved in the initiatives they had begun to support. He wasn't just a passive observer anymore. He was contributing ideas, attending meetings, and offering his insights. Donald couldn't help but feel a sense of pride as he watched Barron grow into a young man who wasn't just interested in wealth or status, but in making a lasting impact on the world. One evening, while they were having dinner at Mar-a-Lago, Barron turned to his father with another question. "Dad," he began, "now that you've started giving back, do you ever wonder what you could have done differently if you'd started earlier?" Donald thought about it for a moment. "Of course, Barron, I spent so many years focused on building my empire, on winning. I didn't always consider the people who were struggling, the ones who didn't have the same opportunities. But I can't change the past. I can only move forward and do better from here on out." Barron nodded thoughtfully, his young face showing a maturity beyond his years. "You've done so much already, Dad. But what about the future? What if we could create something bigger than anything we've done before?" Donald raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the idea. "What do you mean? What if we created a foundation that could help millions of people, not just with financial support, but with real opportunities, education, job training, access to healthcare? What if we could help people lift themselves up, not just give them charity?" Donald leaned back in his chair, impressed by Barron's vision. It wasn't just a good idea, it was a groundbreaking one. Barron had always been thoughtful, but this idea had the potential to change everything. "You're right," Donald said, his voice filled with conviction. "We could create something that would leave a legacy far beyond anything I've done before. It's about empowerment, not just charity. It's about creating opportunities that will last for generations." The father and son sat in silence for a moment, both contemplating the enormity of what Barron had suggested. They knew this wouldn't be easy, but they also knew it was the right thing to do. It was a chance to make a real difference, to leave the world a better place than they had found it. Over the following months, Barron and Donald worked together, tirelessly brainstorming ideas, meeting with experts, and designing the framework for the new foundation. They called it the Trump Foundation for Opportunity, and its mission was clear: to provide people with the tools and resources they needed to build better lives for themselves and their families. It was unlike any other foundation in the world, focused not just on giving handouts, but on providing the skills, education, and support people needed to break the cycle of poverty and create lasting change. The announcement of the foundation's launch was met with widespread praise, and many people began to see the Trumps in a new light. They weren't just businessmen or political figures anymore. They were philanthropists, leaders who understood that true power lay in lifting others up, not just in accumulating wealth. Months later, as they stood at the opening of their first community center funded by the foundation, Barron looked up at his father with a smile. "Dad, we've really done it. We're changing lives." Donald, with a proud but humble look on his face, placed a hand on Barron's shoulder. "No, Barron. You did it. You asked me that question. You helped me see what truly matters. This is your legacy, too." Barron smiled, his heart full of gratitude. He knew his father had always been a great man. But now he saw a new side of him, a side that cared deeply about the future of the world, a side that was willing to make real sacrifices for the greater good. As the community center doors opened, children and families poured in, eager to take advantage of the opportunities being offered. For the first time in years, Donald felt truly fulfilled. This was his legacy now, not just his business empire, but the lives he had helped change, the opportunities he had created for others. And it all began with one simple question from his son. The Trump Foundation for Opportunity continued to grow. And over time, it reached millions of people across the globe. Barron and Donald remained the driving force behind it. But it was clear that the foundation was something they had built together, a shared vision, a shared purpose. As they continued to watch the impact of their work unfold, Donald realized that his success in business, his accomplishments in politics, and even his name, while important, paled in comparison to the lives they had touched. And Barron too knew that his question had set in motion something that would transcend time and generations. It had not only changed his father's life, it had changed the lives of countless others. As the years passed, their bond only deepened. They remained dedicated to the mission of the foundation, always striving to do more, to help more, and to leave a legacy that was truly meaningful. And as Barron sat beside his father on another quiet evening, watching the sunset over the Trump Tower, he knew that the future was in good hands. Their work was far from over, but the impact of what they had started was already being felt. It was a testament to the power of a single question and to the incredible journey of growth and change that had followed.